Hey John, it's Symbolic. How you doing? Thanks for the great response video on this. This was the attached to the private property and human rights video. God, you brought up a lot of great gray areas. I like gray areas are always tormenting, but they're fun to analyze because you pick apart the different points. So you talked about what about people go into, say, a restaurant, or let's say a restaurant, huh? And maybe they have a really foul body odor, or maybe they have a lot of body hair, or maybe they're drunk. Um, there's also the possibility that one of these conditions could have a medical cause, or one of the conditions could be due to a religious practice. Um, so it's really, really interesting. Yeah, case by case basis, man. Just like you say, all that stuff has to be done on a case by case basis. Um, I usually first look at the what the law says. What are the protected kinds of groups, and then I kind of look at what's the philosophy under the law that runs through it. And a lot of the laws that protect people's civil rights. Um, they basically are protecting a group of people from being excluded from the economy and sort of becoming a permanent impoverished class, due to some sort of prejudice or something. And there's usually, most of the time, whatever the attribute is that people are excluding them for is usually something really beyond their control. They're born into it, and their children will be born into it. Um, so it's an attribute like skin color, national origin. Religion also is one of them. Of course, we have also the freedom of religion in this country, so it kind of hits the First Amendment. But that's the kind of thing where, you know, people usually teach their children. Most people are in the same religion as their parents, so you could see how it would, create a whole religious group that could, for generations, be sort of excluded or limited in the economy. So we've got that factor too. Then also there's public health and safety, and a lot of health and safety issues will trump some of the other concerns. I mean, you could have a medical condition that makes it, unsafe for you to drive, that maybe can't be controlled through medication, and an employer really can't hire you because if they do, they would be putting the public at risk if you're a driver. And some of the really, really foul odor and the intoxication element kind of falls into the realm of public health and safety. I mean, someone who's really intoxicated is going to be unpredictable, and quite often it causes aggression too. So it just makes people really, really unpredictable. So I can see the justification for refusing to serve someone who is really, really intoxicated. That could be a risk to customers and to workers. Someone with a really foul smell, that could also be an indication of sort of a health risk. Now, I mean, that also is subjective impression sometimes. I don't know, but a really, really rank foul odor combined with other clues, could really indicate that the person is sort of a health risk to the customers or to the workers. So, but once again, it's a case-by-case basis. So you don't want to be putting anybody else at risk. I mean, because the public and the employees also have rights, and laws that protect them. That's why it's interesting when you get in these cases where you're trying to weigh, everybody's rights when there's little conflicts like this. Facial hair, just purely facial hair. In most cases, I don't see that as a reason to really exclude people from being a customer, because there's no real direct scientific link between facial hair and, say, a health and safety issue, or a really ultra foul odor. I mean, some people may not like it. They may personally not like really hairy people. I don't know why, but that would be one of their own little prejudices. There are certain establishments, however, which create their own sort of, you know, image that they want to kind of maintain. So you may have a beauty salon that, you know, um, that has an image of making everybody beautiful, and then someone comes there and applies for a job, and they just, you know, uh, they're just not cosmetically attractive, so it doesn't jive with the business image. And I think there's case law that says in certain cases like that, the employer is it's okay for the employer not to hire the person. Let's say the place sold razor blades and was into a real clean razor blade look, and that was their brand. And somebody comes in like looking like the Yeti, the abominable snowman or something. You know, the place could probably say, "I'm sorry, it would adversely affect business if we hired you." Now that being said, it's not like there's a big class of people who are going to be made permanently impoverished, because hairy people appear all over in all groups, and hairy people are not like a protected group. Though I suppose there could be one genetic condition in a family that would fall under medical condition. Medical conditions. There's usually a need to try to accommodate a medical condition if possible, for the employer and the person to try to work out some kind of, mutually acceptable accommodation that doesn't, cause an undue hardship upon the business. So that has to be analyzed. Religion's kind of interesting too. If you have religions with cultural practices, maybe not bathing, maybe there's an odor. As long as it's not a threat to health and safety, that shouldn't be a problem. There are other religious practices that I just read I read the scan on a case law of Harvard. Harvard had a gymnasium, and this is fairly recent, I think, and a group of Muslim women wanted to use the gymnasium, but due to their religious beliefs, they didn't want to be seen by men. So the question became, well, how do we accommodate the religious beliefs of this group of Muslim women to let them use the gymnasium and not completely exclude the men, because then we would be excluding the men, which would not be good, because that would be violating their rights as men. And I think the solution they came up there was they scheduled certain hours, just like you would in a swimming pool where you have the kids playing and then the adults. They scheduled certain hours where it would be a women only gym. So that was kind of an interesting accommodation. What else? I think those are the basic kind of principles. I mean, there's always going to be borderline cases in the middle that are just going to be really, really hard to assess, I think. But if we keep those basic principles in mind, public health and safety, which groups are protected, whether there's something we could accommodate. I mean, we certainly don't want to be thinking only about the prejudices of the customers. I mean, because the prejudices of the customers, though that may affect the business, are not something that we should let dictate. I don't believe, anyway, let dictate how we treat other people. I mean, you could have, say, a racist town, that doesn't like one particular race, and someone from that race goes into a restaurant. The business owner can't say, "I'm not going to serve you because my other customers won't like it," because then again, what you're doing is you're starting to exclude an entire group of people from the economy and creating a permanently impoverished class. And race is a protected attribute, I guess I'd say, under the civil rights law. So that's the kind of thing. So I would say health and safety, the status of the group, trying to accommodate what the law says really should be accommodated, religion, medical conditions where possible, things of that nature. And employers can have dress codes if it's consistent with their business purpose and their business needs. They can't go too far. I don't know too much about it, but I know that employers can have the dress codes. And usually most requirements, as long as they're consistent with business need, are okay? That employers just can't do arbitrary things? I'm out of time, buddy. Great questions. Talk to you soon.